As we all know, teachers, single grade is hard enough to handle na. How much more kung multi-grade yan, diba? So, dalawa yung level niya sa loob ng classroom mo, mahihirapan tayong gumawa ng mga instructional materials. Ang dami nating pwedeng paghandaan, lalo na tsaka yung lesson plan. So, multi-grade is really hard job. And that's why we need a serious, ongoing teacher training and a commitment to hard work. Kasi nga, ito yung kailangan natin para ma-implement natin yung ating gagawin o yung objective natin. So, I want to share my experience nung ako ay nagtuturo sa mga bata na iba't ibang age. So, dahil yun ay voluntary, at the same time, yung mga willing makinig at matuto, welcome naman kahit sino mga bata. I have experience na sila ay i-handle. So, naobserbahan ko na yung mga batang ito, kapag mas matanda na yung kasama, mga bata, medyo malilikot na, medyo magugulo na. Tapos yung mga malalaki naman, nadi-distract sila sa pakikinig. So, ang hirap nilang i-handle or i-manage kasi nga, magkakaiba ng level. So, yung mga malalaki naman dyan, tendency na nila, hindi na sila sumali or makinig ng lesson kasi nga, naguguluhan na sila dun sa mga maliliit na bata. So, para maiwasan yun, kailangan natin ng mga strategy din. Okay? So, let's proceed to the assessment tools and strategies to assess the performance of students. So, paano ba natin ina-assess yung mga estudyante based on their performance base? As teachers, paano ba natin ini-implement yung performance assessment in the classroom? So, most teachers, it probably is a common practice for you to devise some sort of test that has been learned before introducing something new to your students. So, probably, this will be either a completion or multiple choice test. For example, the results of an English test may indicate that a student knows each story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. However, these results do not guarantee that the student will write a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Therefore, as an educators, we have to advocate the use of performance-based assessment. Performance-based assessment represent a set of strategies for the application of knowledge, skills, and work habits through the performance of tasks that are meaningful and engaging to students, according to Hibbard and others. This type of assessments provides teachers with information about how a child understands and applies knowledge. Also, teachers can integrate performance-based assessments in the instructional process to provide additional learning experiences for students. There are benefits of performance-based assessments because of well-documented. However, some teachers are hesitant to implement them in their classrooms. The reason is they don't know enough about how to fairly assess a student's performance. Defining the purpose of the performance-based assessment. In order to administer any good assessment, you must have a clearly defined purpose. Thus, you must ask ourselves several important questions like, what concept, skill, or knowledge am I trying to assess? What should my students know? At what level should my students be performing? What type of knowledge is being assessed? Like reasoning, memory, or process. So, by answering these questions, you can decide what type of activity best suits your assessment needs. So, after that, After you define the purpose of the assessment, you can make decisions concerning the activity. Yes, there are some things that you must take into account before you choose the activity, like time constraints, availability of resources in the classroom, and how much data is necessary in order to make an informed decision about the quality of a student's performance. After you have determined the activity as well as what tasks will be included in the activity, you need to define which elements of the project determine the success of the student's performance. Sometimes you may be able to find this criteria in local and state curriculums or other published documents. Resources may prove to be very useful to you. Please note that some lists of criteria may include too many skills or concepts or may not fit your needs exactly. Be reminded as well, you must be certain to review our criteria list before we should apply any of them. Our performance-based assessment. May mga criteria na hindi fit sa activities or mga paggawa natin sa mga bata, kailangan natin mag-develop ng sarili nating criteria most of the time. Kasi nga, kailangan natin iangkop ito sa kanila. These are the suggestions that we can follow, like identify the overall performance or task to be assessed, perform it yourself or imagine yourself performing it. So, in that way, kapag nakita natin kung paano natin siya i-perform, kaya din ng mga bata. So, dapat lagi natin iniisip yung kakayanan ng bata. List the important aspects of the performance or product. Yun, mahalaga din yun. Try limit the number of performance criteria so they can be observed during the pupil's performance. Kailangan limit lang mga at least 5 criteria. For example, yung storytelling or yung essay writing. Kailangan dyan yung content, yung title, yung organization. Yung mga ganong criteria, kailangan limit lang para madaling sundan ng mga bata kung paano nila gagawin yung activity or yung ating pinagagawa sa kanilang ibinigay sa klase. Okay? So, kung madami yan, malilito sila, hindi na nila alam kung paano i-organize yung kanilang gawa kapag marami din yung criteria. So, kailangan limited lang. Next is, if possible, have groups of teachers think through the important behaviors included in a task. Yun, kailangan din natin yan as a teachers. And next is express the performance criteria in terms of observable pupil behaviors or product characteristics. Kailangan na ang mga bata na observe din nila yung behavior nila kung paano nila ipe-perform yung activity. Then, makikita natin yung kung paano natin din bibigyan ng tamang criteria o tamang assessment based on their performance. Next is, don't use ambiguous words performance criteria. Hindi yung dalawang meaning na magkakos ng confusion sa mga bata. Kailangan certain. Arrange the performance criteria that likely to be observed. Kung halimbawa ay sa content ng storytelling, kung kailangan ba siya 30% or 50%, basta naka-arrange based on their points or scaling or maybe dun sa kanyang terms, it's up to us. Clearly defined criteria will make it easier for us to remain objective during the assessment. The reason for this is the fact that we'll know exactly which skills or concepts that we are supposed to be assessing. If your students were not already involved in the process of determining the criteria, you will usually want to share them with your students. This will help students know exactly what is expected. So there are degrees of performance-based, either successful or unsuccessful. But we need to evaluate the performance in a way that we will allow to take those varying degrees into consideration. So this can be accomplished by creating rubrics. So first, let's define what rubric is a rating system by which teachers can determine at what level of proficiency a student is able to perform a task or display knowledge of a concept. Different levels of proficiency for each criterion. Like the process of developing criteria, we can develop by utilizing the previous one, and any type of rubric should fair and simple. Performance at each level clearly defined and accurately reflect in its corresponding criterion or subcategory. These are the things that we should consider. So when deciding how to communicate the varying levels of proficiency, you may use impartial words instead of numerical or letter grades. Or we can use the following scale: word, sentence, page, chapter, book. The words such as novice, apprentice, proficient, and excellent are frequently used for developing criteria. Doon naman sa criteria development, kailangan din minsan i-allow natin yung mga students na mag-assist sa atin sa criterion of rubrics kung saan magkakaroon sila ng good learning experience for them. And we can also engage students in this process by showing them examples of the same task performed or project completed at different levels, and discuss to what degree the different elements of the criteria were displayed. Kailangan magpakita ng mga example para alam natin na i-implement yung kanilang performance based on their criteria. Sometimes yung mga bata, kapag hindi nila alam ang mga rubrics na mga gagawin nila, provide them a sample of rubrics, or kailangan i-share din natin yung ginawa nating rubrics para sa kanila, para dun makita nila yung dapat nilang gawin para makumpleto din nila yung mga task or project. Sometimes kasi yung mga estudyante walang kakayanan pang gumawa ng mga different rubrics. So, as a teacher, we need to support and provide them such thing. Next is assessing the performance. So, these are the approaches, ways to record the results of performance-based assessment, such as checklist, narrative, or anecdotal, writing scale, memory approach. It is not advisable itong memory approach kasi sa dami ng iniisip ng mga teachers, makalimutan na niya yung mga napagdaan na mga pangyayari, lalo na involve yung mga bata. So, kailangan pwedeng gawin na approaches is checklist, narrative, or writing scale. The literature distinguishes the types of assessment, the formal and informal. First is the formal. Under the formal, there are standardized tests. It is designed to be taken by many students within state, province, or nation, and sometimes across the nation. There are types like achievement tests, aptitude tests, and diagnostic tests. In achievement test, dito naman yung mga mastery of academic content standard. Aptitude test naman ay focusing on specific subject like math, science, and English or social studies. And diagnostic test, strength and weaknesses in skills, typically reading or mathematics skill. The other one is criterion reference test. Ito naman yung kung saan nagbibigay ng information kung ang estudyante ba ay naganap o hindi niya nagawa yung performance na yun. So, sa norm reference test naman, ito naman yung report student performance relative to others. So, for example nito is a student scores on the 72nd percentile in reading, it means she outperforms 72% of the students who were included the test norm group technical test manual. The next type of performance base is informal, such as self-questionnaire or checklist, observation, portfolio, rating scale, time sampling, event sampling, anecdotal record, tests and quizzes, grading assignments, demonstration stations, and graphic organizers, as well as journals. Teacher, we must be aware that not all hands-on activities can be used as performance-based. So, performance-based assessment requires individuals to apply their knowledge and skills in context, not merely completing a task on cue. So, let's summarize our discussion. We tackled about performance assessment, the purpose, the types of assessments, defining and developing the criteria. I hope that you gain more knowledge about our topics today. So, before we end our second topic, we have to answer this first sheet. I'll give you a minute to answer this. Okay. Who got a correct answer? Okay, thank you very much. So, I hope that everyone learned and enjoy our webinar. Thank you very much. And also, see you later for our third topic. So we have a little break time. Thank you, everyone.